What's up, everybody? It's Johnny Bronto here with HauntScene. Future John is going to cut in here because we had some audio gremlins. So when we did the show last night, for the first part of the show, Richard's audio was perfectly fine. And when I played it back, our audio sounded like we were like a tin man in a submarine. So not very, very, very good. Obviously, Richard deserves better than that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to recut the questions, and we'll bring in, when I fix the audio, a little bit into the episode. But please go ahead and enjoy the elevator pitch here where Richard introduces himself, and what I'll do is I'll come back on and recut those questions. It's just for the first part of the show, so thank you for bearing with us. Sometimes things happen.
Okay, I'm introducing myself with the worst hair I've ever had. This is just great. This is just great. Hi, I'm Richard Kadrey. I am the author of the Sandman Slim series, supernatural noir, very violent, very funny, about a killer, a man who becomes a killer because he's sent to hell unjustly. And in the first book, he escapes hell, comes back looking for the people who sent him there. The first book of the series is a revenge novel, a real old-fashioned revenge novel about a man who's kind of crazy at this point because he spent years in hell. But I discovered one thing writing the first book, that you can get away with as much violence as you want as long as it's funny. Especially decapitations. Decapitations can be very funny, and the book kind of starts off with one, and it goes crazy from there. I've also written for film. I've written comics. I play in a band right now called A Demon in Fun City, and I'm really lucky that I get to do all this crazy stuff. I count my blessings a lot, which is a trite phrase, but I'm really happy and really lucky to be here.
Okay, so after we got through the elevator pitch, which was awesome, we did start off on a slightly down note because we had heard literally that day that Cormac McCarthy, the famous author of The Road, No Country for Old Men, and many other works, had passed away. And I know that Richard had mentioned it on Twitter previous to the show, and I did ask him if he had ever had the chance to meet Cormac McCarthy.
No, I would have loved to do it, but he would probably have been annoyed with me. He did not. I don't think he liked fame very much. He didn't like fans, so I would have to. I would have to figure out a way to approach him. But I would love to have met him just because his books mean a lot to me. I've learned a lot about prose and storytelling. Part of Sandman Slim, a lot of Sandman Slim comes from both Elmore Leonard and Cormac McCarthy. And in fact, a more recent story of mine, Across the Dark Water, was really affected by McCarthy's prose. Blood Meridian, especially, it's a Western, a Louis L'Amour Western, a traditional Western, as told by a wrathful Old Testament God. It is one of the most brutal, physically brutal, violent books you will ever read. Not everyone finishes it, but just read it for the prose. Just try it. There's nothing else like it. There's no other character like Judge Holden in the book, who's one of the central characters. There's nothing else like him in literature. It's the judge, I believe, is why they'll never make a movie of this book, or they'll never make a good movie. They'll make a movie at some point, but I don't think there's anyone alive who can play the judge. He is too large, too mythical for any actor I can think of, and I can think of a lot.
All right, so then it was time for our segment called 10 Questions. Now, right before this, it was kind of funny because I was talking about how I started the book and I got to a certain point and I'm like, oh my God, I love this book so much. I want to buy the rest of them. And after I got through the first book, I wanted to buy them all in hardcover, as you can see behind me. Now, Richard completely calls me out because I was like, oh yeah, when I got to the end of a chapter, well, there are no chapters in the Sandman Slim books, which I never really realized until he said it. I guess I just put the bookmark in at some point and I'm like, you know what? I need to have more of these. But then we got right into our segment for the 10 questions. Here we go. Okay, so the first question on our list that we asked Richard was it always the plan for 12 books? How did you keep up with an almost yearly release schedule?
No, it wasn't. Originally, I sold 3 books. They let me write 3, which is amazing for a book like this. So I wrote 3 with an open ending on the 3rd book because I knew I wanted to do more, and I'm not stupid. I wasn't gonna kill him off in the 3rd book. So they let me do 3 more books, and I was able to do a 6-book arc, which is what I really wanted to do. Then at the end of that 6-book arc, I got them to let me do some more books. And the 7th book, because I finished up that 6-book arc, the 7th book is almost a reboot. It's taking the character not to a new place, but to a slightly different perspective. The whole series is based on the idea of the rehabilitation of a monster. When Stark comes back from hell, he is just a killer. He is a machine that wants vengeance. Over the course of the books, he meets friends. He, as much as he resists it, comes to care about people and the world. So over the 12 books, we see this monster become a human being again.
And the monster who kills monsters. So check
The
this out.
monster who kills monsters.
Check
Yes.
check this out, Melissa.
So at this point, after the answer to the first question, Melissa, my co-host here, has not read the Sandman Slim book. So I was describing what kind of things you would find in the book here. So you're going to find magicians, cults, angels, demons, vampires, vampire tarantulas, also known as jades. The death is an actual character here. Immortal French alchemists, Nazi skinheads, Lucifer, Beelzebub, zombies, smart zombies, half-human angels, Nephilims, talking heads, hellions, fallen angels, old gods, new gods, murderous ghosts, zombie hunting porn stars, secret societies, wastelanders, anti-angels, brujas, earth gods, road gods, self-mutilating cults, and gods Pinkertons. And Melissa had a question about what an actual vampire tarantula was, which is a jade, the character Candy. So here's Richard explaining what a jade is.
Yeah, please explain to me what a vampire tarantula is.
I wanted to come up with something, a kind of monster that was scarier than a vampire, but was sort of vampiric. So I came up with the jades. The jades are more spider-like, so they will bite you, but instead of drinking your blood, they dissolve you from the inside like a spider, and then just drink that. They're like vampires. They'll latch onto your neck, but they're drinking your insides.
Wow. That's intense. Okay.
And that Candy, the jade, the vampire tarantula, becomes Stark's girlfriend for most of the series. Because monsters fall in love with monsters.
Okay, so after we got through finding out what a jade was from the author himself, I did follow up with a question about Richard releasing the books on a yearly schedule, and how did that go, or what was the plan with that? So take a look at this answer right here.
Yeah, I like the idea of trying to do a book every year, a real old-fashioned serial. It's one of the reasons the books don't have chapters, which really upset a lot of people at first. But I like the idea of because Stark is kind of a speed freak character, and I wanted the books to have that feel. So we start at the beginning of the book and we run all the way to the end of the book. And then because I think they're relatively fast reads because of that, because there are no chapters, it's hard to put down. So people tend to read them quickly. And so because of that, I felt like I kind of owed people a book a year.
Okay, the next question that we asked Richard about what was the process of creating the world and mythology of Sandman Slim?
That's a really good question. I have very mixed feelings about world building.
Okay.
I knew Sandman Slim was going to require a lot of world building. It's set in Los Angeles, so that helped. So I wanted to take Los Angeles and just twist it without breaking it, but make it a much weirder place than it is on the surface. My original notebooks, I have a notebook that thick of my early notes for Sandman Slim before I wrote a word, trying to figure out as much of the world as possible. But I have a lot of rules for myself because I think, especially for younger writers, world building can become a fetish. So that people just build their worlds, you know, down to the napkin rings without writing the book. It's really easy to get lost in world building. So what I did in terms of world building, plus even the story itself, is I left holes, and I wanted to find moments that could surprise me. So I figured if I could surprise myself, I could surprise the audience. So the world developed as I was writing it. I knew a certain baseline stuff. I knew who Stark was. I knew who his friends were. I knew a lot of the rules of LA and the Sub Rosa, but other things presented themselves along the way. And when something good happened, I knew to run with it. A lot of stuff I threw away, but sometimes you just find some weird little thing that becomes a very big thing in the course of the book. So I do believe in world building and doing your homework, but I do also believe in leaving yourself room for surprises.
Awesome. So, do you have any like string boards pointing to different things?
Oh God, I sure did at one point. I still have somewhere in my files. I still have the giant Sandman Slim database of everyone who died, how they died, where they came from, what were their characteristics, things like that. So yeah, I needed over 12 books. I really needed to. At a certain point, I remember going, "Who's dead?" I don't remember who's dead anymore. So I had to go back and look at that.
That's awesome. Just keep a spreadsheet.
Yeah.
It's funny because the way you described that, and going back to, because we were talking about like Dungeons and Dragons, like Magic the Gathering, stuff like that. That was very similar to what my DM did, because I'm a huge Dungeons and Dragons nerd. Mm-hmm. But like having these things to kind of keep track of them, so that's actually really cool. That was Jay Crawford, by the way. He was the DM. All right, plug. All right, next question here, and this is something that is so. I've read a lot of books, and I've never come across this particular style before. What does your inspiration for your cinematic style of writing come from? It's just so like visceral and so descriptive, and it's so like in the moment and the commentary, and it's what was your process there?
I really wanted to create movies in people's heads. I wanted to. I think I fool people sometimes. I have enough stuff in my books that seems like everything is filled out, that the room is very well described. But I think I trick people if I do it right. I trick people I give them enough details that let them fill in the space themselves. So it is cinematic, it is detailed, sometimes with funny stuff, ironic stuff, weird stuff. But I wanted to let people make that movie. It's why certain things, well, I'll give you one. I never describe Stark in the book. I give you a lot of details. I give you a lot of visuals. I describe everybody, but I never describe Stark. I say he's pale and he's scarred. That's it. And that's part of the movie thing. I wanted people to be able to make their own movie Stark in their head. And I think it's really worked out because I've heard everyone from Johnny Depp to I can't forget Momoa's first name.
Jason Momoa.
Jason Momoa to Tom Waits. So I love that. I want people to have their own star, and that comes from movie casting without letting you know who I cast.
That's well, you probably get a lot of fan casting ideas, and we'll talk about this a little bit later. But Sandman Slim is going to be made into a movie at some point in the future, which is going to be awesome.
Oh, cool!
Yeah. So we were just a step above ground zero on that one. That's cool. Years and years from now, people are going to watch this interview.
They're going to be like, "Oh,
we were there.
We were there before the movie came out."
Awesome. All right.
Cool.
Let's see. Go ahead and ask this one, Melissa.
How important was grounding the books in as much as reality as possible to go with the base coat of horror?
Oh, it's very important to me. I really wanted the books to have a very strong sense of the real world. Because part of the books, the reason is I set the books in LA very specifically because I love LA, but it's a very messed up city. And I wanted to also, excuse me, I wanted to be able to make fun of Hollywood because I've had a lot of dealings with Hollywood over the years. So Hollywood, street culture, punk culture, porn, bar culture, all that stuff had to be in there to make it real. And once I had a grounding in that, I figured I could do anything. I could take people anywhere else. As long as you can feel the pavement under your feet, I can show you anything, I can convince you of anything, and I can take you places that you didn't expect and you weren't maybe not prepared for.
Nice. Because the world does feel very lived in. The way you describe things and the way you talk about the locations, which some of these are real locations, it's like a I don't know if it's like a love letter to the actual physical location of LA or if it's or the opposite. But it's just so cool because there are things that you hear about, like articles or videos, or you watch YouTube videos or whatever about these certain locations. You're just like, where have I heard that before? And I really, it's just weird. It's almost like you can get to know a place without ever having been there. And I've never been to LA. I think you've been to LA.
I have many times, and I love it so much. It's just different. It's a different environment.
Yeah. So I just
it really is. I love LA. The books are kind of a love letter to LA, but it's also with an awareness of how completely screwed up LA is.
It is. I can 100% agree with that. But yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
awesome.
I love going to Hollywood parties because at every Hollywood party, people don't know me. So people stare at me and they try to figure out who I am. And they want to know if I'm important. So over the course of an evening, people will sidle up to me, try to figure out who I am. Am I a director that they don't know? Am I an actor they should be aware of? No, I'm a writer. The moment they realize, oh, you're a writer, they're gone.
Aww.
Everyone's gone.
Aww.
And but that's the hierarchy of LA. That's how it works there. Everyone's a hustle. Everyone's hustling. Everyone thinks LA is this dream town, but really it's an old mining town. You know, it's one of those one industry towns, you know, from the early 20th century. There's only one industry and you want to get in there and you want to dig into it and you have to, and you're obsessed with it. And within that one industry, there's tremendous hierarchy. LA, all the jokes about everybody in LA having a screenplay are true. And I love that about the place. Everyone thinks that they're gonna be a star. And the good part of LA is it sometimes happens. The bad part is the city is full of ghosts because it doesn't happen most of the time. And you have broken people wandering the streets and people coming there to follow their dream and people going home because it just crashed and burned.
Yeesh. And in the books, there's also like a hell version of LA on top of that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah, hell is LA. You navigate hell the same way you navigate Los Angeles, especially Hollywood.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Nice. All right, next one here. Go ahead and ask this one, Melissa.
If Sandman Slim could share a novel/cinematic universe with another book/movie, what would it be?
Or does it already?
It doesn't.
Okay.
I think, I'm not sure, but I think Stark and John Constantine might get along. Both of them would think the other was an idiot at first, but I think if they got a few drinks in them, they could find some common cause. So they've both been through similar experiences. So I think Stark's world and Hellblazer, I think those things might overlap. Not overlap, but I think they could be kissing cousins. I think, like I said, I just basically, not to make it too complicated, I think Stark and Constantine could get along, but they'd really have to get loaded first.
That would probably happen. I could definitely see that happening. Nice. I'm a huge fan. I know this is probably, you probably heard this 1,000 times, but I'm a huge fan of American Gods, Neil Gaiman, and I just love the idea of America, actually America having a melting pot of its own mythology. And for me, I think it's just something where I love things so much that I want them to mesh with each other. You know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's cool. All right. So this was something I thought was interesting because in the books there are long-term consequences for what the characters do, whether that be they may not survive, or there might be something might happen to them, or their relationships may not work out here. And it's very, I guess I grew up with, like, not so much these days because everything is like like bittersweet type ending type things, but what were the long-term consequences? Were the long-term consequences of your character arcs planned in advance, or did they happen organically?
Both.
Okay.
I knew over the course of the books, certain things were going to happen to certain characters. There were going to be certain moments, certain beats that had to happen. And I knew, once I got 6th book into the series, I knew the ending of the whole series. It's hard to talk about sometimes without giving away spoilers, but I knew a lot of what was going to happen. But again, I left room for myself for surprises. And I'll admit it, because a lot of it is organic too, I annoyed myself because there was some stuff about certain characters, certain major characters, that I wanted to come out earlier in the series. And it didn't happen. I had to wait like 10 books for the story to accommodate that character's backstory, and that really annoyed me about myself, that I couldn't figure out how to get some of those characters' backstories up earlier. So I finally got it in there, and I'm very happy with the way it worked, but I'm also annoyed that I wasn't able to do it earlier.
Yeah. Now with some of those things, because when you're doing these books and you're signed to do these books in like blocks, and you've got these things on the shelf, did you feel any pressure to like get these things in early, or was it I'm gonna get there when the story gets there? I'm not gonna compromise that just because I want to fit it in the only 6 books I'm gonna get, or something like that.
No, by the time the second 6 rolled around, by the time I sold the second series, I knew we were going to go to 12.
Oh, okay.
So it gave me a lot of room to expand. So I didn't feel like I ever had to rush anybody's story. So I think things unfold pretty much organically. They make sense the way they are. As I said, it's my own failure as a writer that I couldn't bring out some things earlier, but they would have been forced.
Mm-hmm.
you can't just say, I have this character and I want to do this thing with them. But if the story won't accommodate it, why do it? And then, so later on in the story, when it became integral to the story, suddenly I was able to bring out this thing in a character that made me very happy, and I think shifted some things in the book around.
Cool. It all just really flowed together. It was just,
Thank you.
yeah. All right. Go ahead and ask this one, but I got something to say on this one. Go ahead and ask that one, Melissa.
What was the process for weaving in music? Did a song fit the scene or vice versa?
The song always fit the scene. I never wrote a scene to put a song in there. It was always, it grew out of the moment. Stark is one of those people. I remember years ago, William Gibson talking about the world of Neuromancer and the character Case, saying that Case was a post-literate person. And I'd never heard that term before, post-literate. Stark is very post-literate. Stark's worldview comes from music and movies, and that's part of what's wrong with him, because music and movies are based on fairy tales and pleasant lies. So he screws up a lot because that's the way he viewed the world, and he was a young punk in the streets. And when he comes back from hell, he tries to do it again just to get back to his full life, but he's at least old enough now to realize it's not going to work. But he's still captivated all the way through by movies and music. And that's one of those things, I'll admit, that's a little bit of me in there. I always, I started off with Stark living in a video rental store, and then rental stores started dying as streaming started going. So I was able to integrate that into the book itself over real time. I try to resist the idea of Netflix within the books. And then I realized, oh, that's Stark also resisting the concept of Netflix. And so at a certain point, the store dies. And I had to figure out, well, what is there life left in the store? And there is, but it's very peculiar. So there's a certain amount of, the music and the movies obsess me too. And there's over 100 movies and songs referenced over the course of the series. And I look at them both as part of the story, but also recommendations. I didn't recommend I don't think I ever recommended anything in there that I didn't like to some degree or other. I know in the end of the first book, there's a reference to the movie To the Devil a Daughter, which is not a good movie, but I mentioned that it's not a good movie. That's one of, if they talk about a movie I don't like, I'm going to tell you, because I don't want you going out of your way to look for it and being disappointed.
Yeah, the conversations with Kasabian and Stark are, it's just one of those things where you're just talking to your friends about movies and you're very strongly opinionated, and one person has a very particular thing they like, and maybe it doesn't mesh well with what everybody else likes there. But the reason I asked this particular question here is because you just said that there's like over 100 references. They must be in there, because there were a couple times where I was reading and I'm like, there's a song on the jukebox at the bar or something like that. And I'm like, hold on, let me put my bookmark in, my Phantasmagoria bookmark, shout out. And I'd open up Spotify and I'd be like, play, and I'd be like, wow, this is so cool. It just gives like the whole world a realistic tactile thing that you can literally take what you're reading in a novel and transfer something you just read over into another medium, which is I just think is really, really cool. I wish, I guess I never knew that I needed that in other literature before, and I just thought that was really, really cool to be able to have that experience. And when I go back and I reread all of these, I'm going to be looking for those little Easter egg type drops in there to get some new music and that kind of thing. So I really like the way you did that.
Thank you.
And it's perfect that you brought up the whole video store thing and Netflix or whatever, because I do have another question that kind of leads into how peculiar that video store gets. Oh, right. So this is a question that I have here, because I imagine, you've got the books and it's going to be a movie and that kind of thing. But when you think of just the loose concept of Sandman Slim as a film, as something somebody would go and see in the theater, what is the one thing, as the person that created this and also the person that, like the godfather of this whole thing, what is the one thing they're going to have to get right when they make the film?
I hope they're able to bring Stark's inner life out on the screen. The books are told from a first-person point of view, which is very internal. Film is very external. I hope the writer, who's a very good writer, figures out a way to get Stark's point of view across. Stark's very sarcastic, says a lot of funny things. I don't want him to be a quip machine, just some jerk who says funny, sardonic things all the time. You fall into Bruce Willis territory very quickly with that, and I do not want Stark to be Bruce Willis. So I hope they can figure out some way to show Stark's point of view without making him a jerk.
Nice.
Without making him always sarcastic, always sardonic, and coming across as someone who doesn't care.
Nice. I chuckled. There were a lot of times, and I don't chuckle when I read novels. Like if I watch a comedy or something like that, I might chuckle. But there were a couple times where, like, just the way you described something or the way his personality came out or how he was describing, I think like he was like driving a car at some security guards or something like that, and he's like, yeah, their powers of deduction told them they had to get out of the way or something like that. And it was just the combination of words that you used was just, it was hilarious. So I really do hope that comes across, because I think that is very key to the character. It's just so.
I hope so. I hope. Yeah, there has to be. There's a lot of John Wick action. There's a lot of monsters and gruesome magic, but the humor has to be there without undercutting the other stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, all right. This is something I have to ask.
Okay, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you ask.
Oh, you want me to? Okay. The Bamboo House of Dolls / Donut Universe based on actual places.
Bamboo House of Dolls. I have a number of bars over the course of my career in books. Bamboo House of Dolls is, in many ways, my ideal bar. It's a punk geeky bar, and that made me very happy, that combination. So a certain amount of Bamboo House of Dolls is just a bar I want to go to. I would if I was ever going to run a bar, I would run Bamboo House of Dolls. So that's on a personal level. So it was easy for me to put that in the book. Donut Universe is basically all donut shops after 3:00 in the morning.
That's
when I wrote my first novel, Metrophage, I wrote it at night. I was a real night owl back then. So I would write from 10 or midnight to 5 or 6 in the morning. And at some point when I was done, there was a donut shop a few blocks away, and I had to clear my head. So I would walk to the donut shop, I would get a donut, and I would get a cup of coffee. And there were always night owls there, everyone from cops to prostitutes to street people to other people like me who work night shifts. So it's that mix of people, that liminal space that all places become at 4 or 5 in the morning, but especially donut shops with the weird characters it collects. Unlike a bar at 5 in the morning, you're going to get certain types of people there, but a donut shop at 5 in the morning, you get anybody going there.
Nice. Yeah, we're talking about how I'm from Detroit. That was like the White Castle experience. So yeah, Very cool. All right, that's awesome. Now I know that the Hollywood Forever Hotel, the Hollywood Forever Cemetery here is this is an actual thing because I looked it up here because this is where it's not really much of a spoiler because this is where he pulls himself out of the cemetery and comes out of hell basically here. But this was really cool, and I think there was like a zoo, a decommissioned zoo at some point in the books.
The zoo is in Griffith Park.
Gotcha.
There is a real decommissioned zoo in Griffith Park, so I used that.
There we go. That's what I was going for. So very cool. It just feels so real.
One of the reasons I wanted to use Hollywood Forever is it's a celebrities cemetery, so we're getting back into the Hollywood thing. Rudolph Valentino's there, Johnny Ramone is there, so it's sort of everybody in between. Plus, it's a special place within the movie world because they show movies there. They'll put up a giant screen. You can come there with your picnic basket and your blanket and watch Suspiria in Hollywood Forever Cemetery, a real working cemetery. So everything in LA is showbiz, and everything, all showbiz is a cemetery at some point, and all cemeteries are showbiz at some point.
Awesome, man. Well, that fits in perfectly. Okay, all right. Personal thing, and you read my mind with one of these, the alternate dimension movies. So, not to give too much of a spoiler away, but one of the things that makes the situation with the video store unique is they can pull in movies that were made in other dimensions, like Jodorowsky's Dune or other things that were there. And the first time you mentioned that, my first, and I don't know if this was, I think it was middle of the series, I think, when you first kind of introduced this concept. I don't remember the specific book, but my first thought was, I was like, you know what movie I want to see? I want to see Neil Blomkamp's Alien 5. And sure enough, at the end of towards the end of the series, I think it was in the last book, you're like, I'm just gonna sit down and watch Neil Blomkamp's Alien 5. So I think that's really cool that I don't know, you just reached into my brain and pulled that one out because I was really, really excited. I'd love to see Jodorowsky's Dune, but yeah.
Me too.
Cool.
Well, those are all the movies from the other dimension are movies that didn't happen in this world. And I researched that. All the ones I mentioned were real. Like Cronenberg was going to do Frankenstein.
Nice.
Cameron was going to do Spider-Man. All these movies, that's what it was. It's all the movies that didn't happen here. The first one I thought of that I want to see is Orson Welles' version of Heart of Darkness.
Ooh.
That's what he was going to make when he made Citizen Kane. He went to Hollywood to make Heart of Darkness, but then the studio, because it was his first movie, the studio said, no, it's too expensive, do something cheaper. So he did Citizen Kane instead, a movie which just changed the whole, cinematic world. So it was probably a good idea he didn't do Heart of Darkness, but I still want to see it.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I would imagine you follow film, and every once in a while you hear of a movie. Like for whatever reason, I'm like fascinated with Alien 3. I don't know why, but David Fincher.
I like that movie a lot.
I love the assembly cut. I mean,
me too.
Yeah,
me too. It's much better than the theatrical.
Yeah, but that had a whole. I mean, I think William Gibson actually took a turn at writing a script for that. So
everybody, let me tell you, I've seen the piles of scripts. Every writer in LA wrote an Alien 3 script. It became a joke in Los Angeles. I have at least 6 Alien 3 scripts.
Oh wow!
In my collection, they had a lot of good people do a lot of good concepts. Bills is also a good one, but they didn't know what the hell they wanted to do. I mean, from what I read, the Fincher one, they didn't know what they wanted to do. They were faxing him script. They were faxing scripts to the set every day.
Whoa.
They were writing the movie as they were shooting it, which is just why it's so strange, why people hate it.
I just have a soft spot for it, it was so left field after Aliens. Aliens is like one of my favorite sequels of all time, and it was just like
Sure.
you feel like the whole story is going in a certain direction, and it's just like it's just it just completely takes a left turn with that one. So,
Which I loved, and people hate that kind of thing where you take a story that they think they know and then twist it. There's a great movie called Something Wild by Jonathan Demme. And if you watch that movie, I don't think it's giving too much away. You can read about this. The first half of the movie has one tone, and then halfway through, the tone shifts dramatically. And people hated it. It's a very well-respected movie now, but when it first came out, it got terrible reviews. It got hate from fans because of that switch. But I loved it at the time. I thought it was brilliant. But it takes a real kind of bravery to take something that people think they understand and go, nope, it's really this other thing, or it's two things. Both things can exist. Aliens can exist. Alien 3 can exist. They don't, neither one discredits or erases the other.
Awesome. Yeah, so Neil Blomkamp. I just want that one.
I really want to see that movie. Yeah,
it's awesome. I love Neil Blomkamp. All right, I think that's it for the questions. That's it. You made it through the 10 questions.
All right.
What did you think? Those weren't that was
good. That was very good. There's a lot of cool questions and a lot to learn about.
All right, so I want to make sure that I do this before I forget. But we do have all of Richard's contact info, so definitely go to richardkadrey.me. I keep saying Kadrey. I don't know where I got that from. richardkadrey.me. You can follow Richard on Instagram, Kadrey. You can follow them on Twitter if you want to, or Facebook, all over the place. You can buy the things. Do you still have the merch store up?
I don't know.
Okay.
Things, the whole richardkadrey.com situation is very nebulous right now, so I don't know if any part of it exists anymore.
Okay.
It's a real mess. That's why I created richardkadrey.me. It's brand new. I don't have to deal with any of that old stuff. But I hope the merch store is out there somewhere. Just as this little, lost thing floating around.
Just out there. You track it down like a little internet Easter egg.
Yeah, the people might stumble across every now and then, because damned if I know if it's there.
Gotcha. All right, and I probably could have brought this up a little bit earlier, but 15-time New York's best-selling time.
No, I'm sorry. Yeah, I wanted to correct that. You're giving me way too much credit.
What?
I just one New York Times bestseller list. Yeah.
Huh.
Just one.
Okay.
Just one. There were a few more that kind of almost got there but didn't quite. The New York Times changed its rules of how it counts books.
Gotcha.
And all of a sudden, a lot of books dropped off there very quickly.
Okay.
So, yeah, I managed to get lucky to squeeze in there, but not since.
Gotcha. And then 100 top Amazon 100 science fiction and fantasy books to read in a lifetime. That's pretty cool.
Yeah,
and then
that's pretty cool.
And then being made into a movie, which is just so cool.
That's very awesome.
I can't wait to see it. Yeah, maybe in the future when like the movie and stuff comes out, you can come back on the show.
Yes,
if
please.
you want to.
Sure,
that'd be a lot of fun.
That's fine. Yeah, I would do that.
Perfect. And then a couple other projects, because you not only do you do the writing, but you also are a musician, you're a photographer. So definitely follow Richard on all the social media, because he creates a lot of different things, which is awesome. And I was actually just listening to this earlier, Demon Fun City, which is a little unexpected, but it's pretty awesome. It's a really good instrumental, very textural music. I've been listening to it while I've been playing Diablo 4, because I'm a nerd, and it works out really well. It's just got a great texture to it.
Yeah, well, that's the other thing. I mean, I think, like the books, it's very cinematic. That was the idea. We call it cinematic ambient, with a combination of cinematic, ambient, and doom jazz, which I think kind of covers the ground for it. Really wanted to, again, like the books, paint little movies in people's heads. I think a lot of people expected me to do a metal album when they found that I was playing in a band. It's not that at all. B.C. Smith, I think the other reason it seems cinematic is B.C. Smith is a film composer. So between what he does and what I do, I think those little stories just kind of bubbled up naturally.
Absolutely, yeah. Definitely check it out. You can listen to it on Spotify. If you got Spotify, go check it out. Got some upcoming.
You can buy it on Bandcamp and Apple Music too. You got to make some money.
Yes,
here.
give them the money. You probably make more money off of that than Spotify.
Yes. Oh, everyone. Oh God. Yeah.
And upcoming projects. You've got The Secrets of Insects coming up here on July 31st, which is, I believe, a collection of short stories or stories.
My first collection. Yeah, that's exciting.
And if you are a Sandman Slim fan, one of the stories is actually based on the character Candy. So if you want to see that, and I was really
that's a brand new Candy story, never been published anywhere. This is the first time anybody will be able to see it.
Oh, that's really, really cool. Now this takes place during this part of the things.
Yes.
Right? Or this part right here. So that I thought that was kind of cool because I was originally thinking, this is what happens afterwards. Like if you wanted to, but yeah, that's actually really cool. I like that. I like that a lot. It's like you can just kind of get back into that world for just a short story. So that's really cool.
It's like a side quest, right?
Yeah.
Game.
I like that. And reading what I read about it, it actually fills in a gap of the story that I had when something went down. So yeah. And then we've got October 3rd. You got a couple things. You got a big busy October coming up here. Working with Cassandra Caw here. The Dead Take the A Train. So Choo Choo MFers. That's coming out. You can pre-order this if you want to. Do you want to give a quick synopsis on that one?
That's Julie Cruz is the protagonist. She is a psychic operative who does everything from exorcisms to demon hunting, but she's really, really good at it. But she's down on her luck. Some things have gone wrong in her life, partly because of an old lover who's kind of messing with her reputation in town. So she's not making much money. Things go from bad to worse for her. She decides what she really needs in her life is a guardian angel. And she goes looking for one. And basically all hell breaks loose from there. It's what we're calling a queer anti-capitalist gore novel. So there's a lot of magic, a lot of gore, a lot of I think funny parts in there too, like Sandman Slim. But between Cassandra and I, we really mess up New York a lot.
Cool. That's awesome. And then also on October 3rd, can pre-order it. You've got The Pale House Devil coming out.
Yes, that's going to be a trilogy. That's the first book. It's about two killers, Ford and Neuland. One is alive and one is dead. The Ford is alive. He only kills the dead. Neuland is dead. He only kills the living. And so they're killers for hire. And a job goes wrong for them in New York. So they decide to take a road trip. And on the way, they pick up a job that seems very simple, very straightforward. But of course, what happens is they run across something they've never seen before. So their lives become very complicated. And like The Dead Take the A Train, very messy and gory. But again, kind of funny too. There's always going to be some kind of black humor in my work. I can't get away from it.
Yeah,
it's so.
I love the dark humor.
It just plays well off of the environment.
It ease up the horror a little bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's a little playful.
Exactly.
I like that.
It's also natural for the characters.
Yeah.
You know, if you ever talk to EMTs or cops, They all have very bleak, dark senses of humor, and it was kind of playing off that idea.
Very cool. Awesome. So look all these things up. You can pre-order The Secret of Insects. I think there's like a signed version that you can go in and get. You can pre-order there online.
That's Subterranean Press.
Okay. And then go on Amazon if you want to grab those. I'll be picking these two up here this fall. And I will have plenty of winter reading coming up, which would be great. Awesome. And then once again, here's the social media information here. And wow, that hour went by very, very fast.
That was fun.
Yeah,
those books are so interesting.
They are. They're really, really good. And I will be honest, man. Going back to like the first thing, I didn't realize these books did not have chapters to them, because this was something I would literally just pick up and I would put in my bookmark in there and I would set it down and I would just keep picking it up, and I literally went through 12 books and never realized that there weren't chapters. So I feel kind of dumb. But
not a single one. Not a single one.
That's awesome. Very cool. Any shout outs? Anybody that you want to shout out here as we start to wrap this thing up?
Cassandra Caw, my collaborator on The Dead Take the A Train, has a book of short stories out right now. And that's actually up for the Stoker Award. So go look at the Stoker Awards.
Oh, hell yeah.
You will find it there along with a lot of great stuff. It's called Breakable Things. And Cassandra also has, oh my God, I'm like on the name. All of a sudden, I can see the cover. All right, scrub that one. Go look up Cassandra's work, because they're a great writer. Also, Craig Clevenger has a new book out called Mother Howl. That's a wonderful literary serial killer novel.
Right. And I'm going to have you send me a list. Yeah.
Okay.
But just give me things to buy. I will buy all the books to read all of them.
All right, I'll give you all of them.
Very cool. All right. Well, thank you so much. This was really, really good, and I feel so much better.
Yeah.
Like, I got increasingly like nerve-wracked all the way up to this, and I'm like, what if he doesn't like us? You know.
Oh, this is great.
That's so cute.
It's cool. So yeah, and then we'll stay in touch. I'm sure I'll touch base with you one time. I love watching your Twitter. Your Twitter's hilarious. So definitely follow him on Twitter. And yeah, we'll maybe set something up for the future and revisit maybe some other works in the future. So
sure.
So yeah,
hope so.
Awesome. All right, well, go ahead and hang out on Zoom for a moment, and we'll chat after here. We gotta say goodbye to our audience and pay the bills. But yeah, hang out on Zoom, and we'll be back with you in a moment. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. That went awesome. You know what? He's super cool.
He's so awesome to talk
to.
Like
his body of work is very, very intimidating. All right. All right. We're gonna go ahead and wrap this up here. Thank you all for watching. I know we had some new people watching. If you're watching the replay on YouTube, thank you. Make sure you go down and hit that little like and subscribe and share button. We would very much appreciate that. Thank you to all of the folks that came in. Richard was very nice enough to share this out on his social media to bring in some of the audience there. So we do have some people here that I don't recognize, so I would imagine they're probably fans of his. So we do appreciate you watching there. Thank you, obviously, for writing all the books, because they're all amazing, and I got some of those questions answered, which is really, really cool. Yay! All right, let's go ahead and wrap this thing up. So who do we have on the show next week?
No one. We got a week off.
What? Yeah. We're taking a week off?
I remembered, and then we have I guess the following week.
We do have a guest the following week.
I remember.
Yeah, we do, John the Flamboy. All right, so let's go ahead and wrap this thing up here. So make sure we do appreciate our Patreon supporters. Thank you for supporting what we do. We do appreciate that. Helps keeps the HauntScene lights on. So John Sebastian Laval, Crystal, Mark Muncie, Carrie Schultz, who we just saw this weekend. We saw Amanda. We have got our friends SNR Travel Stories. Crystal, we saw this week. We actually saw half these people this weekend. Sean Fenner, appreciate you supporting us on Patreon. If you are interested, make sure you follow us on social media. We are HauntScene on everything. Go to HauntScene.com, see what we're up to. Follow us on Instagram and YouTube. Subscribe to us. Those are our main platforms, but we're also HauntScene on everything else. Appreciate you following us right there. Keep in mind, we do have sponsorships open for HauntScene. If you're interested, just follow up with us, and we'll talk about the details for that. And just like Melissa said, no show next week because we will be taking a week off. But we have our final show here in June with Mr. John LaFlamboy of Zombie Army Productions. Haunter, owner of Zombie Army Productions. They own some haunts in the Chicago area. I've been to a bunch of them. Can't wait to talk to him about all that stuff. So it's been an awesome month here. A nice chill month with some great guests so far. And that's going to be it. So it is 8:59. Good job.
All right.
And we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. So thank you all for watching.
Thank you so much.
We do appreciate you. And that'll be it for this show. So until next time, spook easy.
Happy haunting. Have a good night. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Give me some treats.